So Donald Trump is trying extremely hard to control the media. Let's take a look at this clip.
So this is Donald Trump, and he's tweeting out, President Trump is reshaping the media. Gone, reforms, and win. He's got these three categories here. And basically in the gone category, it's various reporters or anchors or hosts that have lost their job, or various networks that they're defunding. So PBS defunded, NPR defunded, right? And so I guess the Trump people are really proud of this kind of stuff. And then you have reforms, okay? So this would be changes of ownership in various things, changes in hiring practices. Then you have Trump, they claim record-setting interviews, or they're bragging that Trump goes on an NFL broadcast. They'll brag about settlements, basically suing media companies. So gone reforms, then you get to the winning part. And basically Trump is, he considers winning as featuring Trump everywhere and bragging that he has 3 million followers on TikTok, or it's all Trump's world. So
the reason Trump is doing this is because he does not want us to see the real deal of what's happening in real time in Iran, and also because of the Epstein files and all the bad illegalities of things that's going on with his DOJ. Now, in my last video, I explained to everyone my predictions for, like, let's say Pam Bondi, is going to get fired. We already had Lindsey Halligan, Alina Habba, so on and so forth. Dan Bongino quit. I told you a long time ago that these were the throwaways. Remember that. There is no evidence that Trump committed a crime. That literally came out of her mouth. When Kash Patel said, he said, there is no credible evidence that Trump committed a crime, or that anybody other than Epstein committed a crime. Credible, key word. That's what she said flat out, Pam Bondi. And we know that a couple of women, underage and over age, 18 years and older, have accused Trump of criminal conduct. So when we get the House, we will vote to remove Pam Bondi for false statements to Congress or perjury of a different sort. That's also obstruction. Congressional investigations just did an investigation with James Comey for the exact same thing. It was false. He won. But we have her on tape. And that's why these congressional hearings are so important. They try to trip people up to bring it back later on them. Now, what happens when she gets, voted on, when we get the House? First thing that'll happen, usually, is that Pam Bondi will be removed. That's what I assume is going to happen, just to save face with Donald Trump. He don't like a bad look, hence Christy don't. But what if she doesn't? What if she bucks it? Then they vote and the criminal referral goes to who? Pam Bondi. But this is the perfect storm for them. Because right now, everybody's saying, what's going on with the Democrats? Why are they so quiet? They giving them a rope to do what they know they gonna do, which is to create even more illegalities. So when this referral, if she bucks, and it doesn't matter if she bucks or not, because let's face it, they're gonna get her either which way, if she quits or she stays in office. So it goes to the DOJ. And that's a little bit out of my purview as far as knowledgeable legal education on what happens that far above my pay grade. So we'll let Glenn Kushner tell you that.
So I think if you have this kind of uncurable problem with the mechanisms that we have available when there's a conflict that DOJ is put into, we can go to the court. Congress can go to the court. Congress has filed suit, not infrequently, particularly during the Trump years, to try to enforce its own subpoenas, for example, to try to get Donald Trump's prior White House counsel to testify. So, Congress knows how to go to court and assert its rights. They can file suit in court. They can petition the court to appoint its own special prosecutor. Now, there is some precedent for courts to be able to appoint a special prosecutor in certain circumstances, like if a court order is violated by, let's say, the Department of Justice, and the Department of Justice refuses to pursue a criminal investigation or prosecution based on that violation of the court order, the court can appoint an independent prosecutor to vindicate its own rights, because in a very real sense, the court is the victim when a government official violates a court order. Congress could file with the court a request that they replicate that process, because DOJ is hopelessly conflicted out of making this kind of a determination. And listen, the judge can say yes, the judge can say no. Of course, if the judge says yes, it will go up on appeal, and it will be one of those maiden legal voyages that prosecutors sometimes take when it is the right and righteous thing to do. I'm not going to tell a war story, Brian, but I had a couple of instances in my 30 years as a prosecutor when I did something that was without precedent. But it was the right thing to do. It was a righteous thing to do, but there was no case law governing the unique circumstances of the crime that I was involved in investigating and prosecuting. And guess what? We actually made case law. We created precedent because we won in the trial court, and then the Court of Appeals said, this looks like it is the right thing to do for the right reasons. It's lawful, it's constitutional, and even though it's never been done before, we're going to do it. They sanctioned it, and we created law. That, I think, is an opportunity for a pathway to holding Pam Bondi accountable for her crimes.
Now we need to understand what's happening in real time. In real time, the petrodollar. You do know what the petrodollar is, right? Okay, but let me bring you up to speed on that.
Oh, how did the US dollar come to control this global market? To understand this, we need to go back to World War II. At the end of the war, while most of the world lay in ruins, the US emerged with its economy and manufacturing base intact. This led to countries agreeing to make the US dollar the center of the global financial system at the Bretton Woods Conference of 1944. This would be a new world order backed by the US dollar.
Now, I just want to interject here and say that, when the World War happened, we came in on the last leg of it, which now Donald Trump is 2 weeks ago was beating them over the heads, the UN, telling them they didn't need their help, that they had everything under control, but thanks for offering anyway. Now, a few weeks later, Donald Trump is telling them, yes, we need your help. Even China, he's asking to help. And Russia. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? You're literally talking about taking over their oil supply. But I just wanted to say, we jump in at the last minute on things, and that is how we gain control over both sides of the war, because we were selling things or giving intelligence to both sides. And that's what we did in the Middle East. As far as Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia, we keep playing both sides of the fence whenever it benefits us. That's why there's no peace in the Middle East.
The US promised that its dollars could be exchanged for gold, and so other currencies tied their currencies to the dollar. But in 1971, President Nixon decoupled the US economy from the gold standard. This was known as the Nixon shock. This transitioned the world into a fiat currency economy rather than a gold-backed economy. Fiat currency is government-issued money that isn't backed by a physical commodity like gold or silver. and instead gets its value from public trust and economic stability.
Okay, real quick, because I made a couple of these videos and never really touch on how bad America is with controlling the global markets. And we do this every time we get in a physical economy crisis. Here we go.
After the US stopped backing dollars with gold, the dollar stayed dominant because the US economy was so huge.
Now, remember that. But before,
on the evening of August 15th, 1971, U.S. President Richard Nixon went on live television and delivered an 18-minute speech. Most Americans didn't understand what he was talking about. But in reality, with this speech, Nixon committed the most massive and most elegant heist in human history. He took people's gold away from them, leaving them with paper bills, and those bills rapidly began losing their value. People listened to his speech, but most didn't even realize what had happened. When Nixon finished his speech, the world changed forever, and millions of Americans began rapidly growing poorer. To understand what exactly Nixon stole, imagine the economy of the 1960s. At that time, every dollar was backed by gold. Literally. This meant you could walk into any bank and exchange a $100 bill for approximately 3 ounces of gold. The government couldn't just turn on the printing press and print $1 billion. No gold, no new money. The system worked simply. Want to print $100? Show gold worth $100. All the world's currencies were pegged to the dollar, and the dollar to gold at a rate of $35 per ounce. This meant real stability. Your grandfather could set aside $1,000 in 1950 and know that 20 years later, they would be worth roughly the same. This creates trust. Inflation is minimal. People and states are confident that paper money has real value. By the late 1960s, simple arithmetic showed a catastrophe. Outside America, there were $80 billion worth of dollars, while gold in American vaults was worth only $10 billion. This meant that if all dollar holders simultaneously demanded gold, America would go bankrupt. Other countries began to notice this. The French were the first to understand this. In 1965, President de Gaulle publicly called the Bretton Woods system fraud and demanded real gold for their dollars. He sent a warship to New York and took away $150 million worth of French gold. The American government was forced to allow the French to take the gold. Other countries got the hint. Following France, West Germany, Switzerland, and the Netherlands began active exchanges, each demanding to return part of their dollar reserves in the form of gold. Gold flowed out of American vaults like a river. U.S. reserves rapidly melted away. Already in the early 1970s, the volume of dollars in the world significantly exceeded America's gold reserves.
And that is how we came to the situation that we're in today.
Treasury Secretary John Connally reported to Nixon, "Mr. President, at current rates of gold outflow, our reserves will be exhausted in a year and a half. We have 2 choices, either bankrupt the country or change the rules of the game for the entire planet." Nixon understood any decision would be catastrophic. Continuing to exchange dollars for gold meant inevitable bankruptcy. Stopping the exchange meant breaking promises made to the entire world. But there was no choice. The American elite preferred to deceive the planet rather than admit their insolvency. August 15th, 1971, Sunday, 9:00 p.m. Americans are watching television at home. Suddenly, the president appears on air. Nixon looks calm and confident. He speaks about protecting the American economy from international monetary speculators. He accuses other countries of unfair competition. And then he utters the phrase that turned the world economy upside down.
I directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar to gold.
The key word, temporarily. But behind the scenes, economists understood America would never return to the gold standard. This temporarily has lasted 53 years now. Nixon didn't tell the truth. He didn't admit that America simply couldn't fulfill its obligation because there was almost no gold left. Instead, he blamed the entire world for attacking the dollar. Nixon's speech shocked governments of other world countries. For them, this was real robbery. They had entrusted their savings to the U.S. under the guarantee of gold backing. And America responded, sorry, there will be no gold. Keep the paper bills.
So as many of you will find out, just like Bill Maher pretended to not know, that what happens when countries no longer are using the American dollars for petrol, for oil, to buy and trade oil. And that is what is propping up all the funding for all these billionaires for all the AI. You see the domino effect that could happen. But Bill Maher is one who just acts, sometimes like he has no knowledge of these things.
A minute. Okay. Good segue. Trump says no Air Force. Iran has no Air Force, no missiles, and no Navy. He says there's nothing left to bomb. Yeah, we have nothing left to bomb. Apparently, they have something left to bomb, which is the Strait of Hormuz. I don't understand.
Okay, real quick, I just want to show you guys something. This is how dumb our president is. During the Afghanistan war, what was the population of Afghanistan? In 1979, Afghanistan's population was 13 to 16 million. 2001 to 2021, when the war began in 2001, the population was roughly 26 to 27 million, with a major influx of returning refugees soon after. What is the population of Iran currently? The population of Iran mid-March 2026 is 93.1 million people. For 20 years, we fought a war. They didn't have no Navy. They didn't have no airspace. How do you say? They didn't have an air force. The Afghanistans, the Talibans, all these people had was terrain, the mountains predominantly. And when we came in on the ground to try and take that over, it became like Vietnam. So in this region, the Strait of Hormuz, it's even worse than Afghanistan was as far as terrain. We can't take tanks up in there. If they go in on the ground, I'm sure it's just they've been planning this for 20 years. It's totally booby trapped, just like the Strait of Hormuz is booby trapped with, underwater mines. So to me, that's how dumb Donald Trump is. He thinks that 93 million people were going to give up much quicker than 23 or 26 million people. That makes sense to you?
Understand this. We have complete military superiority. We're bragging about that, except for the one place where we apparently need complete military superiority. Do you understand this? Why we can't control the Strait of Hormuz, the one place we need to control in
on a very narrow bottleneck there. So I think they don't have to have much firepower. They're gonna need, if they're gonna accomplish something, it's gonna be by bringing the regime down and getting some sort of compromise on that. It doesn't take much to fire cheap drones and then the ships so that they don't go through.
I should say.
Now the thing is this: the Strait of Hormuz, very, very odd. We can bomb, but we can't penetrate that mountain. We all know that. That's why it was so hard to get rid of their nuclear capabilities, because they're way, way, way below ground. And we don't have a deep bunker bomb that, strong to, basically bust it up. So a mountain is 10 times worse, than just bombing straight on the ground for something that's in the ground. Now we're talking about mountain and ground. They've been drilling into this thing over 50 years. So it's a whole coastline like the Colorado Rockies or something. That's what we're talking about, but without the snow. So there have been many professors like Jay Young and all of them that have said, it'll be almost impossible. However, on the other side, in Saudi Arabia, is all flatland. Ain't nobody got no mountains to hide behind. That was the reason that Osama bin Laden did not get chosen to take out Saddam Hussein, because he said, you beat the Russians because of the mountainous terrain. There are no mountains here in Iraq, so you can't have that job. And they chose America to go in. So we're here now at a point of influx where reality meets insanity. Trump cannot, I repeat, Trump cannot stop this war no less than another 20 years, maybe 40 if you ask me, because we got stopped and stumped for 20 something years with just 23 million to 26 million people. Come on, y'all, do the math. And we're spending 10 times as much trying to stop these Shayed drones. We're paying like $1 million to their $150,000 drone. That's how expensive these ballistic missiles to catch these Shiite drones are. And they have a new type of Shiite drone that we can't catch. We get a few here and there, but they're clusters, so it confuses the missile. And what this gentleman is saying is that they're at a little bitty bottleneck. They just got to shoot one little drone, two little drones to catch a little bitty boat in between that narrow space that they're going to ride through. That's all they got to do. Now, let's take another aspect of this war. We just learned about the petrodollar, right? I want you to listen very carefully to this, and y'all bear with me for those who have seen it already.
But we took 4 of our minesweepers in September and we redeployed them to other parts of the world. And so that was bad war planning, because if we were going to make that attack and anticipated that they were going to close the strait, Bill, we would have had those minesweepers in place. That's been one of the things that's preventing us from getting our Navy in there to take on the convoy.
So, in the brilliant thinking of the commander-in-chief, they removed the minesweepers. Why? You think they didn't think of that? I mean, P. Head said it. You think we didn't think of that? They want to continue the war to distract. Distract from the Epstein's. I know it sounds petty. Nah, they wouldn't do that. Really? 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 I can't think of another reason why they removed those minesweepers ahead of time, before attacking. Just my opinion.
Worried that the oil was headed to China. That's 90% of Iranian oil went to China.
The way it's going to happen is that the Iranians will let the Chinese ships go through, that ships going through China go through.
Which they have been, by the way. The
Right,
Iranian
so-
ships have been going through, heading for China. So they know where the mines are.
The Iranian ships are getting through,
The Iranian tankers have been getting through.
and we're letting them through.
And we are letting them through because we don't want to escalate the situation with China.
So that's another aspect of it. They can try and blow these ships up. That's World War III. Off rip. That's World War III. You know it. I know it. Russia knows it. China knows it. America knows it. So he's going to have to go back to the old-fashioned diplomatic strategies. He thought he could bully his way. He thought that if he preempted with threats on Greenland, with threats on Cuba, with threats on Venezuela, that these people across the globe would get the picture. Or we'll come snatch your leader. We'll kill your leader. They've done all that. They don't care. It's like a hydra. Just another head pops up. We got 93 million of them. You know how things worked out for your ass the last time you came out here with that bull crap.